The conference room of Harrison and Associates, Chicago's most prestigious corporate law firm, had always felt like a fortress of power. Brazilian mahogany walls, leather chairs worth more than my car, and a view of Lake Michigan that made clients feel like gods looking down on mere mortals. Today, that fortress was being used to execute my professional murder. "The vote is final," my brother James announced, straightening his $5,000 suit as he addressed the partners. "Catherine Harrison's position as junior partner is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort her out." I sat quietly, watching the faces around the table. Most couldn't meet my eyes. They'd known my father, William Harrison, had built this firm from nothing. They'd attended my law school graduation. Some had even mentored me. But money talks louder than loyalty. "Do you have anything to say, Kathy?" James's smile was pure venom. He'd been waiting for this moment since Dad died 6 months ago. I stood slowly, smoothing my much more modest suit. "Just one question. Does it bother any of you that while you're billing $1,000 an hour to help corporations avoid responsibility, people are dying because they can't afford legal representation?" "Oh God, here we go again." James rolled his eyes. "St. Catherine, defender of the downtrodden. This is exactly why you don't belong here. Dad built this firm representing real clients, not street criminals." The irony of his statement would have made me laugh if it wasn't so tragic. James had never bothered to learn the firm's true history, how Dad had started out handling civil rights cases in the 1970s, how he'd only taken corporate clients to fund his pro bono work. But James didn't care about history. He only cared about money. "I'll see myself out," I said quietly, gathering my belongings. "Unlike some people, I still have actual clients who need me." "Ah yes, your noble public defender work," James sneered. "Tell me, what's the going rate for losing drug cases these days?" $50 an hour. I paused at the door. "You know what Dad always said about criminal defense work? It's the only time you know for sure you're on the right side of justice. But you wouldn't understand that, would you?" His face darkened. "Security will be up to clear your office. Don't take anything confidential." My office. The same office Dad had used when he started the firm, with its worn leather couch where I'd done homework after school. Its walls still holding the framed newspaper clippings of his biggest civil rights victories. Now it would probably become a conference room for corporate billing meetings. As I packed my personal items under the watchful eye of Dave, our head of security, I noticed him shifting uncomfortably. "I'm sorry about this, Ms. Harrison," he said quietly. "Your father was a good man." "Thanks, Dave." I smiled, remembering how Dad had helped Dave's son with legal troubles years ago. "How's Tommy doing?" "Clean and sober 3 years now. Got his own business. Your father's intervention changed his life." I nodded, running my fingers along Dad's old desk. The massive piece of furniture had been here since the firm's founding. James had wanted to replace it with something more modern, but Dad had refused. "Some things have value beyond their appearance," he'd said, tapping the solid wood. "This desk has secrets even you don't know about, Katie." I thought he was being metaphorical. But now, looking at the ancient piece of furniture, something clicked. Dad had always been methodical, paranoid even, about keeping records. Every case, every client, every detail meticulously documented and stored. But after his death, James had claimed many of the old files were lost or irrelevant. "Too convenient." "Dave," I said carefully, "could you give me a moment?" "Personal items only, I promise." He hesitated, then nodded and stepped outside. The second the door closed, I dropped to my knees and ran my hands along the desk's underside. There, a slight irregularity in the wood. I pressed, and a small panel clicked open. Inside was a key and a handwritten note in Dad's distinctive scrawl. "Katie, if you're reading this, things have gone wrong. Storage Unit 247. Lakeshore Security. The truth about everything. Love, Dad." My hands trembled as I pocketed the key. Just then, James burst in. "Time's up," he announced. "And don't even think about taking client files. Everything belongs to the firm." I stood shouldering my box of belongings. "Don't worry, James. I'm not interested in your precious corporate secrets." But as I walked out of Harrison and Associates for the last time, my mind was racing. Dad had known something like this might happen. He'd left me a breadcrumb trail. And James had just made a crucial mistake. See, while my brother had spent the last 10 years schmoozing with corporate clients and inflating billable hours, I'd been in the trenches, first as a public defender, then handling pro bono cases on the side even after joining the firm. I knew how to investigate, how to build a case from scraps of evidence, how to fight when everything was stacked against me. Most importantly, I knew our father. William Harrison didn't just keep records, he kept insurance. And if he felt the need to hide files in a secret storage unit, they contained something explosive, something worth protecting, something worth hiding from his own son. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria Chen, my best friend since law school and now a prosecutor in the DA's office. Heard what happened. Want me to look into anything? I smiled, thinking of the storage unit key burning a hole in my pocket. Actually, yes. How much do you know about Olympus Capital? Olympus was our biggest client, a hedge fund that controlled billions in investments. James had personally handled their account for the last 5 years, bragging about the astronomical fees they paid. But I remembered Dad's face whenever Olympus came up. The way he'd get quiet, thoughtful, like he was carrying a weight he couldn't talk about. I'll check, Maria replied. But be careful. Those people play rough. I hailed a cab, directing it toward Lakeshore Security. My public defender salary wouldn't cover fancy lunches anymore, but it would keep me alive while I investigated. Because that's what Dad had taught me. Justice isn't about marble offices and expensive suits. It's about truth, about doing what's right, no matter the cost. James thought he'd won, thought he could erase Dad's real legacy and turn Harrison and Associates into just another soulless corporate machine. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The cab pulled up to Lakeshore Security's gates. Inside that storage unit, Dad had left something important, something that could change everything. And I was going to find it. Storage Unit 247 looked ordinary enough. Just another anonymous metal door in a long hallway of identical units. But my hands trembled as I turned Dad's key in the lock. Inside was a time capsule of justice. Floor-to-ceiling filing cabinets lined the walls, each drawer meticulously labeled. Civil rights cases 1975 to 1980. Pro bono files 1981 to 1990. Corporate investigations. The history of Harrison and Associates preserved exactly as Dad had built it. But it was the locked file cabinet marked Olympus that caught my eye. The key from Dad's desk worked here too. Inside, I found something extraordinary. 15 years of secret investigation into Olympus Capital. Bank records, witness statements, internal memos, evidence of massive financial fraud, money laundering, even connections to organized crime. Dad had been building a case against our biggest client. My phone buzzed. Maria calling from the DA's office. Kat, you need to hear this, she said without preamble. We've been investigating Olympus Capital for months. They're running a massive Ponzi scheme, but we can't prove it without internal documents. The kind of documents a law firm might have. I'm looking at them right now, I said quietly, flipping through the files. Dad knew. He'd been gathering evidence for years. That's why they killed him. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Your father's heart attack 6 months ago. Our forensics team found traces of a drug that mimics cardiac arrest. We just couldn't prove who ordered it. The room spun. Dad's death. James's sudden alliance with Olympus. The missing files. It all made horrible sense. I need to get these files to you, I said, already starting to pack the most crucial documents. Be careful, Maria warned. If they find out you have this evidence. But I was already moving. Years of public defender work had taught me how to handle sensitive evidence. Within an hour, the key files were safely in Maria's hands, copies were secured with 3 different lawyers, and digital scans were uploaded to encrypted servers. Then I did something really dangerous. I called a press conference. This is a joke, James sputtered the next morning, storming into the conference room at the Four Seasons where I'd set up. You have no authority to speak about firm business. Actually, I smiled. I'm not here about the firm. I'm here about Dad. The room was packed. Reporters, prosecutors, even FBI agents. James's face went white as he saw Maria sitting in the front row, surrounded by serious-looking federal agents. Ladies and gentlemen, I began 15 years ago. My father discovered something disturbing about one of his clients. Today, I'm going to share what he found. But first, I want to tell you about William Harrison's real legacy. For the next hour, I laid it all out. The evidence Dad had gathered, the fraud he'd uncovered, the way Olympus Capital had stolen billions from pensioners and small investors, and finally, the truth about his death. James tried to interrupt, tried to claim I was bitter about being fired, tried to discredit me as a failed public defender, but the evidence was overwhelming. By that afternoon, FBI agents were raiding Olympus Capital's offices. By evening, their CEO was in custody, and by nightfall, James himself was being led out of Harrison and Associates in handcuffs. "You knew," I said quietly as they led him past me. "You knew what they did to Dad. He was going to ruin everything." James spat. "The firm, our reputation, our future. Olympus promised to make us the biggest firm in Chicago." "Dad built this firm to help people," I replied, "something you never understood." The aftermath was both swift and far-reaching. Olympus Capital's collapse made headlines for weeks. Thousands of defrauded investors would finally get justice, and Harrison and Associates faced a crisis of leadership. That's when the old guard stepped in. "The partners have voted," Margaret Chen, our oldest senior partner, announced at an emergency meeting. "In light of recent events, we're returning to the firm's original mission, and we need leadership that understands that mission." She smiled at me. "Catherine Harrison, will you accept the position of managing partner?" I looked around the conference room, the same room where James had fired me just weeks ago. But now the faces looking back at me were different. Humbled, ready for change. "On one condition," I said. "We rebuild the pro bono practice, just like Dad wanted." The transformation of Harrison and Associates didn't happen overnight, but it happened. We kept the corporate clients, someone had to pay the bills. But we also took on civil rights cases, environmental causes, public interest litigation. Just like Dad had always intended. His old desk still sits in my office. I keep the secret compartment as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things are hidden from view. Justice, integrity, truth. James went to prison for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Most of the corrupt Olympus executives followed. The firm's reputation not only survived but grew stronger, known now for both professional excellence and ethical conviction. And me? I still take public defender cases on the side, still fight for the underdogs, still remember what Dad taught me of the true meaning of justice, because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others built. It's about revealing what was true all along. 1 year after the press conference, I sat in Dad's old office, my office now, looking through some of his earliest case files. Civil rights battles, environmental fights, David versus Goliath struggles where he'd stood with the righteous against the powerful. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "Just won the Thompson case. Your pro bono advice made the difference." I smiled, thinking of how Dad would have loved this. His firm wasn't just surviving, it was fulfilling its original purpose. On my desk sat a framed quote, Dad's favorite saying about criminal defense work. "It's the only time you know for sure you're on the right side of justice." But he was wrong about that. You're on the right side of justice whenever you fight for truth, whenever you stand up against corruption, whenever you choose what's right over what's profitable. James never understood that. He thought Dad's legacy was about money and power. But Dad's real legacy was about justice, about using the law to help people who needed it most. And that legacy was stronger now than ever.